15 years on from the Good Friday Agreement, I see that not only do we need organisations like Justice Watch Ireland, but we're going to wait for them. The situation in the north at the minute, from a legal point of view, I find quite depressing, but certainly encouraged by the fact that there are people such as Justice Watch Ireland who joined the very good work carried out by the likes of CHA and British Rights Watch, and I see Christopher and Brian with us here today, that there needs to remain a focus and a vigilance on the actions of the state, and especially the policies in which they implement very much in a legal basis. And whilst I wish to touch on these in a general sense, given the time that I have today, I'm very able and willing to take questions or speak with any of you afterwards in relation to these. From a personal point of view, a lot of you will be aware that my father was Patrick Finucane. He was a defence solicitor who was murdered in 1989 as a result of collusion by the British government, a fact confirmed in the statement by the Prime Minister to the House of Commons last year, when he apologised and accepted that there was collusion, whilst not allowing any public access or scrutiny as to what exactly went on and how high up the ladder that went. That was a campaign which still goes on in respect of my family, 24 years. Very bluntly, we would not even be close to where we are today without the help of non-governmental organisations. And the work that they carried out, very tireless and at times quite dangerous work that they carried out over the years, and the necessity for that. Quite simply, families do not have the capability to lobby governments, to lobby individuals, to highlight cases in forums that are necessary. And non-governmental organisations fill that gap. And from a personal point of view, I have seen the very clear and positive work that they have carried out over the years. And they were groups that my father engaged with before his death, because before his death, before his murder, his role as a defence solicitor, and in the 1980s there were certainly a lot fewer solicitors at that time carrying out that work in Ireland than we're lucky to have now. But his role was being isolated because he was very much being portrayed in a context where he would be identified with what his clients had allegedly carried out. And when we look back with the benefit of hindsight, we see that policy was quite clearly deliberate and designed, as the Silver Review has confirmed with a very clear MI5 policy. But it was designed to isolate, and Paddy touched on the term that people are being isolated again today, and it's something that's very worrying and dangerous, and people should be alive to that. Because they isolated my father, and that obviously created a context in which a defence solicitor was quite brutally murdered, and we saw that again, that lessons weren't learned, and we saw that again with the murder of Rosemary Nelson some 10 years later. Now, there's a case that I have been involved in recently, and I wish to talk about a number of aspects, but it's a link, just something that resonated with me quite personally. In the recent Court of Appeal case, in the recent Court of Appeal hearing of John Paul Wootton and Brendan McConville, and I act in respect of John Paul Wootton, and I see the family of Brendan McConville with us here today. Something quite extraordinary was brought to light through the course of the police investigation, and reference made to it quite some length when the Court of Appeal hearing was due to commence. And what we saw was that a witness who came forward, who could undermine the Crown's presentation of the case against both Mr McConville and Mr Wootton. A witness came forward and made it very clear that he wished to give evidence at the Court of Appeal that would undermine the Crown case. Now, not only did the police, in my view, quite clearly intimidate this man, and they made it very clear that he should not be given evidence, they arrested him. And during the course of that arrest, a number of very serious allegations were made about the conduct and the role of defence solicitors involved in that case to this witness. Now, what is very worrying about that is, again, I think we see, and it's the first time that I've seen it quite so bluntly, whilst we all have suspicions about what police really feel about us and how they see our role, but they put it quite bluntly and quite publicly. And again, it was a throwback to the days where you identify the solicitor with what the clients have allegedly carried out. And I find that very worrying, because to me it portrayed a sense of confidence on behalf of the PSNI and the security system, whereby they felt that they could get away with those comments, they could get away with those actions. That appeal is still pending and is due to be heard in the new term in October. those are issues which will be articulated and brought out at some length. But in the case of both McConville and Wootton, they are actions which really shouldn't surprise us. And when we go back to the case of whether it's the 70s or the 80s, if any paddy will do, or whether we're talking about the international stage, if anybody with a Muslim-sounding name will do, in respect of this jurisdiction, all really that anybody needs to say is dissident Republican, and that's the climate that we live in these days. Whether your views are dissident Republican, whether your actions are dissident Republican, then really the public turn a blind eye and say, well, the authorities know what to do best, the state is never really wrong, let them crack on with things. We have seen from our own past that that is not certainly a very productive way to go forward. And the case of McConville and Wootton, and 15 minutes would not even be closely enough to talk about one of the points, let alone all of the points. But it's a case that typifies a lot of the very worrying aspects that I think have been represented across lots of different cases in this jurisdiction. One example is forensics, and that was very much brought to the fore in the recent successful retrial of Brian Shivers. Brian Shivers, who was convicted of the murders of Mazarine. At the Court of Appeal, a retrial was ordered. And during his retrial, one of the quite crucial pieces of evidence against Mr. Shivers was that his DNA was on a match that was used to attempt to set fire to the car. Now, for a certain amount of years leading up to the actual retrial, the forensic case in the Crown case was that it was only Mr. Shivers' DNA. It was a food profile, it wasn't mixed. It was his food profile on a matchstick. Now it is either correct or it is not. There's not really a grey area when we come with forensics, the amount of profiles that we find on certain exhibits. Now, come to the retrial, we then find out that there are 3 people's profiles on that match, and obviously the conviction was deemed unsafe, and he was successful in his retrial. And again, that was very much thanks to the good work of his lawyers, Peter Corrigan and Niall Murphy. But to me, that I don't think we should put all our eggs in the baskets of hoping that the lawyer does a good job, because quite frankly, if that wasn't revealed in the retrial, then I have no doubt that Mr. Shivers would be back in jail and serving a sentence for something that he should not be serving a sentence for. What happens and what is exposed in one case may not necessarily be exposed in another. And it brings it back to the fact that there's very much, and there should be a collective responsibility in how we approach what we think the state is doing wrong. And non-governmental organisations, as well as the media, as well as members of civic society, and very much as well as the lawyers, have their role to play in that. Again, just reading the literature and to go down the various points that are raised on the pamphlet that's been set aside for today, it can be quite depressing. You know, we see the complete waste of money that was the Supergrass trials in respect of people accused of UVF crimes, who that case centred on the evidence of 2 people, and I was in the court a couple of times to see the evidence of the Stewart brothers, but quite frankly it was an affront to any right-thinking member of society that your tax money is being given to these individuals to try and secure convictions against people. And again, I was very worried that the PPS deemed fit not to prosecute the Stewart brothers for what was quite clearly lies told in court to break the deal of their Supergrass system. But I understand there may be challenges to that. But again, it's quite worrying. And what I find, where I think both lawyers and NGOs need to adapt, is that I would not be confident that the very public slap that the PPS and the PSNI got in respect of the UVF Supergrass trial, that will not be a lesson learned in respect of abandoning that process altogether. I think, and I fear, what the PPS and the PSNI will do is try to refine that system, recycle and regurgitate it in something slightly different, and again put it forward. We saw that in respect of low copy DNA, which was quite severely and heavily criticised in the case of the Crown versus Hoy in respect of the Oma Bond and other offences. Mr. Justice Weir drove a horse and carriage through LCN DNA and ridiculed to the extent that it was not reliable and should not be used in criminal cases. We then find the PPS and the PSNI and forensics, which is another very worrying, I would call, limb of the state. Going back, refining that, regurgitating it, recycling it, and then putting it back into criminal cases and saying that this is a limb of evidence that can be used. Again, coupled with that, we see the actions of the state in respect of prison issues, whether that's through strip searching, holding people incommunicado, or through controlled movement. And again, all that anybody really needs to say is, well, there's very dangerous dissident Republicans being held in there. Never you mind. Carry on. Nothing to see here. We can take care of it. And from what we've seen, again, in this jurisdiction, And in the past 10, 12 years, in respect of what is referred to as the international war on terrorism, what goes on in prison is very much in the public's mind, and the public should be making themselves aware of that, because if we turn a blind eye as to how people deal and treat prisoners who are on demand, let alone people who are sentenced, then that is something that we will find replicated in other areas of society. And as Jerry Conlon stated again in the pamphlet, is that what happened to me today could very much happen to others tomorrow, and it is happening to others tomorrow, which is very concerning. But without wishing to stand up and depress you all for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, you know, that we are all aware, we all should be aware of the challenges that are there in front of us. But what is encouraging is that we do have a slightly different climate now than we did have 20, 30 years ago, in the sense that there are more organisations who are prepared to be public and speak out publicly and raise cases publicly. And that is something that is very important. One thing that I have seen, just in respect of my own personal experience, in respect of dealing with the British government and their agencies in respect of the murder of my father, and in respect of cases that I have been involved in or have had sight of, they do not like focus, they do not like vigilance. There was a comment from the British ambassador to the United States, I think this could go back as far as maybe 8 years ago, and in that comment to a congressional and also a Senate committee, he justified the British government's refusal to have a public inquiry into the murder of my father because, and I quote, "the operational techniques from that case are very much ongoing in the war against terror." So it's another example of not taking the lessons from the past and saying, well, geez, well, we're killing lawyers then, we're killing everybody then, we should really, you know, try to do things a bit more legally. No, the lesson is do not look, you're not even allowed to find out what we are doing, because we're continuing to do it. Now, that puts an onus on lawyers, it puts an onus on non-governmental organisations, but thankfully, and I'll try to finish somewhat optimistically, I am really encouraged, and I'm delighted to see that there is another group, Justice Watch Ireland, and I think the calibre and the integrity of the people behind that, I think, will do a great service to all those who need their help. Thank you very much.